Hello, this is Suzanne Clegg. Welcome. This is the live distance group healing. And I appreciate you being here today. So I have a goal of getting 100 cancer cures with or without the help of chemo or radiation, but basically in spite of that. Hi, Nels, welcome. Niels? Sorry, Nels, okay. Welcome. Hi, Anna, welcome. All right, so the reason I do this group is because groups are able to create a resonant bond inside each other and magnify the distance healing. So without the group, we wouldn't have the group. So I'm so grateful to have you here. So I'd like you to, as you're joining, to start spinning. And if you're new, what that means is you imagine that you have a ball or a disc of light behind you. If you're old, you can put it wherever you want, but a nice beginning move is to spin it behind your head. That puts it into an automatic part of your consciousness, so it's there, but you're still focused on the here and now. All right, and now I want you to just keep that spinning while I talk. So the healing has begun. I know a lot of you are here so that when we read your name, you'll get zapped with healing, but actually the healing has begun, and you're already being healed. You're already being worked on. Healed, it means, in my vocabulary, what it means is activating your natural harmonious healing forces. Doesn't mean you're all better, because we're never all better. We're always in flux. Hello, everybody. Good, good, good. All right, so the gang's all here. So the title of today's talk is, and I'd like you to keep spinning while I'm talking, all right? Because the healing's already begun. So the title of today's talk is The Gift of Cancer, or what to bring to the group distance healing. So how to show up so that we can receive this gift or bring this gift or something along those lines. Basically so we can enhance the results so that more people get more profound healing results. All right. So you think, well, what's the gift of cancer? It's a pretty nasty disease, but every cloud has a silver lining, even cancer. And no matter what stage of cancer you're in, whether you're just diagnosed and you're freaking out, whether you've been dealing with it for over a decade and it's sort of another day in the office, whether you're in remission, whether you're on death's door, whether it's you that's sick, or whether it's your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your relative, your husband, your wife, your cat, your dog, your horse, your friend, whether it's somebody else that you care a lot about. We're here for cancer and for healing. Now, of course, you can come here for healing for other things, but I tend to talk about cancer because that's what I specialize in. So what I'm trying to say is that no matter what stage of cancer you're at, whether it's you or somebody else, there's a silver lining to this involvement with this pretty scary, dark, lethal, usually, disease. And there's a silver lining, and that's how everything in our three-dimensional reality works. We live in duality, which means there's plus and minus, yin and yang, light and dark, male and female. There's up and down, inside and outside. When you do one thing, it causes an effect over there. The whole realm of cause and effect is duality. And I would say that the philosophy that really helps you work out duality is the scientific method. And I would suggest that for the non-dual, you can still use the scientific method. You can still observe the results. Okay, you can't manipulate something that's not in the causal plane where there's no causes and effects, but you can ask, you can resonate, you can do stuff in duality that creates a connection to what I would call a non-dualistic information field that allows the healing to come through, as if from another dimension. Okay, now this is metaphorical, so when I talk in metaphors, it's no longer strict descriptions like science would be, but the way I find an objectivity in that subjectivity is by the results. I repetitively cool down hot cancerous tumors for a living. I help people live a lot longer or a lot more comfortably or both. I teach family members to join in the act so that you don't have to use me. With cats, dogs, horses, aunts, uncles, family members, everybody. Okay? So it's my experience that this is a helpful thing to do. And so I'm going to talk a little philosophy today because depending on your perspective, you notice different things. And depending on what you notice depends on enables your capacity to receive. All right? So when we're trying to receive from something that's not in the realm of cause and effect that we hope will cause an effect, but it's not from that dimension, how do you open to it? How do you not manipulate it, but how do you invite it? How do you participate with it? And I think philosophy is a better, suits this. I don't know if it's better, but it certainly suits it. So let's go back to the silver lining. What is the gift of your affiliation with your illness? Take a moment and feel into this while you're spinning. Okay. Good. And another question you say is, what soul qualities, what parts of my soul are being stretched into maturity or into just being here by having this problem of this illness? And keep spinning while you think of the answer to that. So each of us, of course, has our own experience with cancer, and I really know this from having worked with cancer for the last decade or so. Not only is the cancer chaotic, but people's individual relationships to it are just so unique. But there is one thing that's common, that's in all cancers, which is why leukemia is very different than pancreatic cancer, which is very different than brain cancer. But what all cancers have in common, which I feel happening holographically on every level, body, mind, spirit level, is chaos. And there's a gift in chaos. The utter chaos, the lack of control. You go to the doctors, they give you probabilities. They're like, well, this might help you live for another little bit, but it's going to cause this other problem. These are the known and the unknowns, and there's a whole lot of unknowns. There's a little bit of knowns, and that seems to pervade every cancer diagnosis. Yes, there's certain predictable aspects to it, but just the chaotic nature of it, how it just grows out of bounds. The boundaries don't make any sense to the chaos, to the cancer, and so it just marches on wherever it goes. Spreads into your lymph, spreads into your bones, spreads into your, wherever. It's just like cuckoo. It's that. So what's the gift of this? Is that we're in the midst of chaos, and you can't latch on to anything outside of yourself to steady yourself. The people that I've really helped, and even the people that I've worked with, and hopefully what we're doing right now, is it helps us find ourself. Because we can only hold on to ourself when there's nothing else to hold on to. Imagine yourself free-falling out of an airplane. You could either splat your energy out to the universe, which you probably would, at least temporarily, but at some point while you're falling, you would be there with your experience. Oh, this is what's happening right now. You could be terrified, you could be happy, you could be all these things, but you would that free fall actually connects you to yourself in a way that nothing else does. So I would suggest that there's many silver linings to all our shadows, but a silver lining that the cancer diagnosis seems to give everybody, or it's available to everybody if they look for it, is the sense of self. And in my shamanic days, I would heal by, and I still do a little of this, but I would heal by going out and finding the part of the self, they call them soul pieces in shamanism, that has been disconnected, and return it to the body, and people feel better. I found that, anyway, why I've moved on from that is another choice, but the idea is that we do come back to ourselves when we heal. Let's see. So, let's say that, okay, let me just read this. Okay, this is what I wrote. Okay. With the only guarantee being death if you do nothing, how do you set out on a path to beat cancer when the roadmap is so blurry? Even the specialist can only offer palliative care, a temporary tumor suppression. So after you emotionally flip and flop, being angry and scared and confused, you're left with yourself, your shadow, which is your fears and your despair, and your light, which is your hope and your dreams. But this self, this centered part of yourself, often gets distracted and gets lost. And hopefully this healing session will help us find our center again. So once again, I'll remind you to keep spinning while you're listening to me, because the healing's already begun. And if you're doing your spinning meditation while you're listening to me, that will help. So even though yourself might be daunted by the prospects and often gets lost, fortunately, yourself is just a thought away. It's not this big project. You just go, where am I? And here you are. Where am I? You just say the word I, and you're back. It's a gesture. It's not like a quantity thing. Okay, now I'm here. It's like, it's just to get here, it's just a thought to bring yourself into the here and now. So healing involves the return of the self. Body healing, mind healing, and spirit healing all involve returning to ourselves. Physically, the cancerous tumor seems to be reaching and reaching and reaching for its information to stop growing. It wants to die. When a tumor cools down due to the energy healing, it's as if it's been fed the information it needs from itself. It doesn't need to reach and to grow and multiply. It's found the information for 𝗙𝗲𝗋𝗆𝗍 and for apoptosis. It's resting in relief. Somehow this information knows how to activate white blood cells, or to somehow remove the barriers on the cancerous cells that make them invisible to the white blood cells. And, oh, there's a cancer cell, let me gobble it up. So that's how physically this return to self, the information from the self, actually changes biochemical reactions in the body. Mentally, when we seek ourself, you could say that we seek for answers and we get guidance. There's this old adage that ask and it's given. And you say, well, I asked and I didn't get it. But I would suggest that the challenge is not was it given, but are you asking the right question, that you actually, a really helpful question. And in order to ask the right questions, that's a spiritual thing, because that's wisdom and that's meaning. That's not just technical information. And I would say that spiritual healing feels like coming home to yourself. Keep spinning while I'm talking, okay? One popular way is to focus on light, the light of hope and faith and optimism. And it's kind of popular, or what do I call it? Kind of a beginner, not naive, but a rudimentary thing that light is nicer than dark. So let's focus on the light. And this is understandable because we don't want to identify with our despair and our fear. We know that that's not useful. But you don't really want to identify with the light either, because you can't stay in the light. It's like the white knuckle grip. It actually doesn't allow you to receive the healing. So what do you identify with? If I'm telling you not to identify with the darkness of despair, and I'm telling you not to identify as the light of hope and optimism, what do you identify with? And I would suggest, and this is just an experiment that you can try, is that you try identifying as the spiritual being that is experiencing this dark and this light, that you are neither, but you are experiencing this duality. That helps you get a little perspective. Consider the lemniscate, the sideways figure eight. So on one hand, one part of the lemniscate we have death and destruction. On the other we have, immortality and love and light. And there's this movement between them. And I would suggest that the only place of freedom is not in choosing sides. This is being realistic and this is being unrealistic but hopeful. It's actually right in the center. And it's a point, which means it's infinitesimally small. The second you on it, you're off of it. It's like a point. Like in geometry, did you learn that point does not have dimensions? So it's just an idea. It's not even anything. And I like this analogy because it emphasizes that freedom comes from a different dimension than this push and pulling thing. It just, and it pops through. And that's what people experience with spiritual healing. Like they get these little ahs, they get these little releases. They go, oh, something just shifted. And it shifted in a microsecond, and then the ripple effect is something that you can actually experience in duality. So, I'd like you to, the way you navigate, so we can't just like go into non-duality, but the way you stay close to this center is you try not to swing wildly, all right? But you don't judge it if you do. If you get really scared one day, you can try to balance it by focusing on some really positive things. Probably the point of power is not where you stay, like do you stay more positive or do you stay more negative, but how often do you cross that point? And you'll cross it more frequently in duality if you are centered. And I would suggest that this is one of the ways that the spinning meditation works, that it actually speeds up this bzzz back and forth, creates a paradox, and helps you be there in the center. But that's a little different story than what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to do is let us come into the healing circle, into the group distance healing that we're going to do in a few minutes, with all of us, with our authentic self. And if we're honest, part of us is scared and part of us is hopeful. And we can bring both of these for healing, okay? Because the freedom comes from both. Sometimes we confuse light with freedom, and it certainly does feel better, I'll give you that. But the way I look at it is there's two devils. One that says it's too hard, and the other says, la 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 la, it doesn't matter, all is well. And I would say that they're both traps. And the freedom is in the middle, right in the middle. All right, so I'd invite you to take your left hand and really do this in your physical body and look at your left hand and put your fears and doubts in there. Maybe this healing is bullshit. Maybe I'm going to die or my loved one's going to die. Maybe it'll be too painful. Maybe I can't bear this. Now over here on the light is maybe this healing will work. Maybe I'll be one of the lucky ones or the wonderful ones that get remissions from this group distance healing. Maybe I'll suddenly get that there, or I'm just sure that life is good no matter what happens. Or I don't even know if I'm doing this right, but anyway, put your version of the right. And now what I'd like you to do is feel that they're in both hands. And now feel your heart. And notice that your heart can help you hold both the positive and the negative. And while you do this, spin. And if you joined us late, spin a ball or a disc of light behind your head. Good. Spin, and in your heart, let the negative and the positive be there. And what do you notice happens to the negative and positive? What happens for me is they become smaller. It's like they lose their charge. They literally, it's like they come closer together and they're not quite so like really, 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 fighting with each other. It's like, oh, here I am. And now I want you to open your hands and let your heart help you just receive the healing for the light and the dark, and help you come into the center. If you want, you can put your hands over your heart, knowing that your heart can integrate all this. In Chinese medicine, the heart is all about being in the here and now. So here we are now. So the gesture, the psychological stance that I want you to take as we go into this distance healing is to come as you are. The good, the bad, the ugly, the brilliant. Just come with all of you. That's the honest thing to do. And I do feel that honesty is helpful. It's not light. It allows you to be centered. It allows you to be close to that point of freedom.